Welcome to the Voices of Manufacturing with your hosts, Brian Salee and Michael Mullenberg, where business leaders across the industry share their unique challenges and insights.
It's almost like magic because it takes the learning process sometimes from weeks down to days, sometimes hours.
We want to help people within manufacturing and make them excited to come to work every day and go home safe to their family.
When you bring people in, they're anything but a machine. They're partners that can help you build your business, that can be your success if you treat them right.
And then you start having employees saying, when are you doing my machine? When are you going to come over here to my department? And now you get this buy-in.
This podcast is brought to you by Dazuki, the premier frontline digital transformation solution that allows manufacturers to standardize operations.
Welcome to the Voices of Manufacturing. I'm Brian Salee, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Mullenberg. Today, we've got an exciting conversation that weaves together many of the themes we've been discussing on the podcast recently. We're going to touch on digital transformation, upskilling, and continuous improvement today. But before we jump in, Michael, I wanted to ask you, have you ever seen a plant go from the worst performing plant in the group to the best?
Well, I have seen plant rankings. In fact, 225 plants ranked from top to bottom. And the vibe I got was plant managers didn't want to be in the bottom 10 or the top 10. So they try to avoid going from worst to best. I'm excited to talk to Erik about his journey on this. It's something I can really relate to.
Well, we're going to dig in. That's the theme of the episode today. And I'd like to welcome Erik Richardson from Intertape Polymer Group to the podcast. Welcome, Erik.
Well, thank you, Brian and Michael. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, Erik, tell us a little bit about Intertape Polymer Group. I know, we were talking previously a little bit, and it's not a really well-known company. I know you guys recently went private, but tell us a little bit about the company and your role there.
Yeah, sure. So the company started back in the 80s with actually our CEO. The founder, he bought a slitting machine, put it in his garage, and he would buy jumbo rolls of tape and he would slit them. His son was our CEO as well now, and he explained that during that time, it was often not a lot of money. And he remembers many dinners and meals of, we're going to have top ramen today. And so from there, they built a facility in Virginia in 86, and the company's been continuing to grow. We primarily offer products in the e-commerce sector. We are in house wraps and lumber and construction. We're also in aerospace and in some of the semiconductor business with some of our product offerings. But really, our core competency is if you need to ship something around the world, we can get you ways to protect it, to pack it, to seal it, to get that where it needs to go. And that's where we've made a niche. In the last couple of years, we've had exponential growth as well. Our CEO said we need to double our company size in the last 5 years. And that's a goal that we as a corporation have met. And we decided to go private, and that concluded Q3 this year. So from a small upstart in a garage in Canada to a huge corporation, with a worldwide footprint. It's been a wonderful story, and I'm grateful to be part of that team.
Yeah, I mean, what a transformation. It's a manufacturing company that literally started in the garage. And now here you guys are. I think I saw some revenue numbers around 1.5 billion in revenue, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think we went private around 2.3 or something like that, 2.4 billion.
Okay. So you guys have gotten quite large. And one of the things I saw that, really sparked my interest was you guys doubled your worldwide factory footprint over the last, 5 or 6 years. What's driving a lot of that growth for you guys?
So we had to look at what we were good at. And we had some core products that are honestly in every person's home. They have IPG tape in their house right now on a package that they've received. And so we've done that very well, but we wanted to look at gaps. And so what we decided to do is to become a global leader in the packaging protective solutions. In order to do that, you do a gap assessment, which is really a lean tool. We just do a gap assessment of where we're at and figure out where we have some holes and find some places we can vertically integrate, and kind of like a SMED type event where we can figure out what we need to do internally. And then from there, we had some key acquisitions to fill those gaps. Yeah, we've had some greenfields, and we've built new facilities, and we built quite a number of them, but the majority of our growth came through acquisition in companies that honestly needed our help. They were not trending the right way, and we were able to come in and use some of the tools that we have and some of the synergies throughout our organization. And I know we'll talk about the Intertape performance system, but we'll use our IPS system and program to turn these plants around and make them more profitable. So that's one of I think the driving factors in why we needed to grow. And honestly, if you don't have a vision, you're just a ship without a rudder. So the vision is we need to grow and be more profitable and increase our top line. And now you need to stabilize and increase that gross margin as well. Although we don't usually tell that to customers, hey, we need to make as much money as possible. No, we need to do it profitably, and we need to hit our pricing strategy that matches our performance. So kind of a roundabout way, but we knew we wanted to be better than we were. And when you're at the bottom of the pile, if there's ever a layoff or cutback, you're the one that's going to go. And that can be within an organization or just in a global market.
Yeah. So let's hit on that. I want to take it because your plant, you're based in Utah, and your plant literally went from the worst in the pack to the best in the pack. And from what I understand, you guys were kind of like a lighthouse plant for the entire organization, right?
Yeah, we are now. I think Jay is one of our senior VPs, and over business transformation, I think he called us the digital transformation lighthouse facility, or some pretty big fun name. But it's an honor when we have, I think, 34 rooftops to be considered a lighthouse for our organization. But yeah, we did turn it around from worst to first. Back in about 2013, things were not very good for our facility. Profitability was down. We had a lot of pressures from foreign markets where honestly, you'd be better off buying a foreign product at that time because the quality that we had wasn't good. I mean, we would have every day you'd have a quality complaint. And since 2013, we've had a 98.9% reduction in quality returns. We're the only facility within the IPG portfolio to have earned our quality cup, which is achieving our quality goals for the last 7 years running. By the way, that's the only, we've only offered it for 7 years. So we're the only facility that's every year we've had a quality goal. We've earned ourselves the quality cup. And that's saying a lot because I have amazing competition internally where I'm competing against my other plants, and they're good. And we're just grateful to have been able to stay on top of it and manage our customers and the product coming out of our door.
Hey, Eric, what were some of the other criteria that helped you earn the worst plant reputation besides quality?
It's a good question.
Or was it just quality?
No, it was more than quality. When you have a quality defect, customers don't like it. When you send a replacement product and it has the same defect, customers really don't like it. I had a boss once tell me, your first mistake is free, but your second one's going to cost you. So don't make the same mistake and again and again. So we had bad quality, but I think that was more an indicator of how the facility was kind of running. Now, you remember we're a Intertape Polymer Group. So we're a tapes first kind of facility. And now I make films. So I make stretch wrap, which is pallet wrap for, anything in the warehouse. And, we've all used hand wrap. Then we also make shrink film, which is very, very clear, very thin, very strong plastic and polyolefin polyester. And it's a very specific use case, and it's used in food processing as well. So we have high quality standards. But we weren't making money, and we had high turnover. Obviously, our quality was bad, and it was hard to compete. And at that point in time, there was actually 2 film manufacturing sites. One was in Nova Scotia, and one was here in Utah. And gross margin was pretty poor. That's the indicator that I'm using to say we were one of the worst in the business. Now, if you have 16 facilities around the world, and one of them makes film, which you don't normally make, and they're not making money, you're kind of at risk. And that's where we don't want to be. We don't want to be in, the bottom 10%. And that's part of the drive is our operations manager over Utah said and proposed to the board, you know what, we need to consolidate. We need to bring all the shrink operation into one location. Let's choose Utah. And here's what we're going to do. And he threw out some conservative estimates, and we're able to see huge, 100+% gains in our gross profit again and again to bring us from being a very poor financially performing facility to number one for a period of time and sustained it. That's the key is we want to be in that top 1, 2, 3 every single year.
Erik, I saw the quote, I read about it in some article from Jay, your VP of Business Transformation. And it was such a great quote. He said, your plant broke the yield number, sustained it for several months, and he equated it to breaking the 4-minute mile barrier, which I thought, that's such a tough thing to do and to be able to sustain it. So you guys had some major transformation going on. And I'm curious, for 7 years in a row, you guys won the Quality Cup, really turning things around. How did you guys embark on this transformation? Where did it start?
So yeah, let's start and tell that journey. So 2013, things were bad. Our quality manager at that time stopped all production within the facility and said, we're going to go inspect the finished goods that are in a box. And he was astonished at the amount of bad product that was being put. And so it needed to start with training, and it needed to start with the expectation. And it started with some quality checks and double checks. And it's a lot cheaper to correct a quality problem internally than it is to deal with the fallout of the customer perception and just the added cost of shipping and logistics. So we started out with a quality focus. Quality was going to be number one. Well, about that time, the company launched their Intertape Performance System. So IPS is our bridge to excellence. There's pillar teams, and they allow us to actively engage the entire facility. Every single employee is on a pillar team and they get a voice. Now, some are way more active than others, but everyone has that chance and everyone participates within the facility. So around 2014 is around when the IPS program was launched. Tremont was one of the legacy sites, so one of the couple facilities within the organization that were chosen. And part of that is picking a model machine and using all of these tools, SMED events, you're looking at value stream mapping, you're doing machine cleans, process hazard assessment, all of the terminology and jargon that we hear with regard to lean and continuous improvement. Those are all tools in the tool belt. And then we focused on one machine, and that one machine, I think this was a few years ago. And I think our gains were 30% in speed increase, and we reduced waste by, I think, another third. And the machine also became more flexible in the process. We could run more product than what it used to be able to do. And then you start having employees saying, when are you doing my machine? When are you going to come over here to my department? And now you get this buy-in. So that's when we earned our bronze milestone. And that's really a model machine. That is, I know what I'm doing. A lot of it is management led when you do a single machine, but it affects all aspects. So we have equipment optimization, we have visual communication, organizational development, and now we're using some more digital tools to help us with that. We have quality and safety. Oh yeah, throughout this time, we were injuring employees as well. You have to talk about safety. Safety is always number one. We went over 2 years without an OSHA recordable, 766 days without injuring an employee. At least I'm sure we had some cuts and some Band-Aids. I know I had some paper cuts back then, but we had over 2 years, and it's just as impressive as our quality record. So a focus on safety and adding guarding and taking care of our employees, all of this is how we were able to do that. We had a continuous improvement foundation that we were able to build upon, which is when Jay gave that quote. He talked about our digital transformation. That was after we had already transformed the entire facility. That's after we were already performing well.
There's a lot to dig into here. I want to learn more about your IPG performance system, but I did want to go back to this focus where you guys focused on one piece of equipment, one line, essentially. How do we turn this one line around? And the buy-in, it sounded like you created some pull from the rest of the organization by turning this around and proving that it could be done. Could you talk a little bit more about, that kind of, maybe there was a mind shift or a cultural shift in the organization when they saw that success?
Yeah, so it was happening simultaneously. There was a couple different facilities that were doing the same thing. We were one of the first 3 to really progress towards bronze and to demonstrate competency with the Intertape Performance System. I know one of the questions you were going to ask is about change to the management structure. Part of this was we hired continuous improvement leaders, which is what my official role is. I am a CI, and we helped drive and make the change. Now we're not, and I have to be very clear, I didn't do anything. I'm not the one that gutted all the PLCs and rewrote all the code for some of my machines. My machines are 100 feet tall and, about 75 feet tall and almost 100 feet long. And we rewrote the code for these huge lines that are 20 plus years old and brought them all up to modern standards, which is one of the things that helped us prepare for this digital transformation. But I didn't do that work. My team did the work. I had amazing engineering managers and quality managers and maintenance managers and operations managers, people that are leading and driving and helping facilitate. Now the work is being done by my employees. I have amazing employees that want to be there. And I feel that every employee wants to be successful. Just give them the tools to help them to do that. We're paying them for their hands, but they're freely, willingly able to give of their heart if you engage them and you help them with this vision. So that's part of what we did is we started with a metric of we have an expectation in quality. And then we focused on this machine and we saw success. And then we started progressing towards silver, which is half of all the equipment within the facility. Now you have some of our leads or other employees on the floor are now leading these pillar teams, and they're meeting regularly, and they have 1-year plans, and they're all aligned with deployment plans, and they know what they're doing and they have a goal. So you asked about what kind of impact does that do in the facility? Well, now people started looking to Tremont, and I have other sites that are doing this as well, but they're looking here to Utah saying, can you help me? I want to do a startup. So we bought a company that needed a turnaround. And so then I spent a lot of time in Chicago helping stand up their site and standing up the Intertape performance system in their site. And they've been able to run with it and see some huge gains in their facility as well. And that's where you get the buy-in from. We are all equal. We have all the same goal. Yes, I might have manager in my title. I might have something that separates us, but at the end of the day, I want to be on the floor with you, cleaning the machine. If you have a pain point, come talk to me. I want to solve that pain point for you because they are the most important asset that we have. Yeah, I have, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment, but that doesn't turn itself on. It doesn't put product in the box. It's my employee. So you have to engage the employee before anything else can ever happen. They're the building block.
Erik, that phrase that you said, people said, pick me, or, can I be next? I mean, that's my metric for successful transformation. When that happens, it's a pull system. It's not, oh, here comes corporate, here comes management, or heaven forbid, here comes the lean team. So well done. I mean, that's, you get a top rating from me as well, just based on that comment of the pull that you've created. Was there any, bumps in the road? Were there any, locations or even lines or even individuals that said, hey, I'm not really into this new system. I don't really want to do it that way. Did you encounter any of that? It doesn't sound like it. There has to be someone.
There always are. Somewhere, something like the 80-20 rule kind of was running through my brain. Yeah, you have some employees like that, but the beauty of it is then you don't work on their line. We had one department engage a lot more fully than another department. So where did we spend our efforts? On the one department that was engaged. And I think that's how IPG's been running the organization is we have Jay and his business transformation team. He asks, who wants to do this? Who wants to be our digital pilot? Who wants to be the lighthouse for the rest of the organization? And we'd already turned the plant around from worst to first. We'd already reprogrammed these 20-year-old lines and gutted them and wrote all our own code and put in new PLCs. So we were primed and ready, and we had a team that was engaged on a management level all the way down to the operator level. So we're giving them tools, and Jay likes to say about how amazing the tools are, but they're tools. They help us to make decisions, and then people go implement whatever the inside is. A transformation tool doesn't speed my line up for me. Yeah, we can get to that point, but it can tell me my line needs to be changed, or it can tell me I have a sensor going out. That's where you need people to interpret it. And so that's what it allowed us to do. We volunteered and we received funding the nice thing about being the pilot is corporate pays for the pilot. And then number two, they have to pay for it out of their own plant. And so we wanted to be the pilots. So we didn't have to pay for the transformation, but we had already built the baseline. We already had engineering, like process and controls and engineering managers on site. We already had a technical team. All of our management team knows how to use these tools. So when they were given to us, we were able to run with them, and we had some very quick success, and we solved some problems that weren't even our number 1, 2, and 3 use cases, but we saw a huge benefit, and we were able to continue to roll them out to the other sites now in terms of digital tools.
And when you
Yeah.
talk about digital tools, I'd love to hit on the technology, because that's a big part of this transformation, I believe, right? Is the technology side. What technology did you guys bring in? And then how did you upskill the workforce? Because I know that's a challenge everybody's dealing with now is I'm hiring people. We're just looking for warm bodies, essentially, that have no manufacturing experience. How
Yeah,
do I?
I've heard it.
Yeah.
I've heard it called the great renegotiation, where now the employees have the power in terms of salary and wages, and they can go somewhere else because of this record unemployment levels. I want to clarify a couple of things. As we started IPS, and it's very much an analog system. We have tier boards that employees would bring their data to. We would write numbers up on a board. We did digitize, and we installed a new MES system in 2017. But fundamentally, IPS provided tools to help get us to where we were, which was somewhere in that 2018, 2019 range. Well, that's when we started the digital. And I like to call it IPS 2.0. Now I can digitize. You have to have a plan. You have to know how it works before you can automate. You can't just start automating. That's where the digital tools came in. That's when they made an impact, because we'd already turned things around. Now I have a new tool that can give me insight into something I've never seen before. I described some of my machinery. My machinery is huge, and I can even break it down into basically 3 or 4 smaller machines that are still incredibly complex. That means data tags. I have, I don't know, 1,500 or more data tags. I think I'm smart, but I can't analyze and understand and slice and dice all of these and gain the insight that I need. I had that information in a historian. I didn't have a digital transformation partner to bring all these data sets together for me and now give me insights based on outside temperature and inside humidity and those types of things. That's where the digital transformation really was impactful.
Yeah.
Now I can use those tools and give them to my employees.
Erik, it's really important. I think we go back to this point that you're mentioning here is you guys didn't start with the digital first. It wasn't, hey, let's throw technology at it. That'll solve all our problems, which is what we see a lot of. And then those projects fail. And Michael, I know you've been talking a lot about this recently, but there's a foundation that you have to have in place already before you start to bring in technology. So could you talk a little bit about some of the various tools that you had in your lean toolbox?
Yeah. So we started with kind of traditional turnover board. We use a tier system. A tier 1 is the shift to shift change. And we have a tier 2. Tier 1 is the machine operator to operator turnover. And then the tier 2 is your shift change, which happens at shift change. So for us, every 12 hours. And then you have a tier 3, which is every day, every 24 hours. You have a tier 4, which happens once a week within the plant. You have a tier 5, which happens within the organization every week as well. So we talk about safety, quality. We talk about the KPIs that are important for that machine. We have our red tag system, which is our work order repair system. We talk about process hazard assessments. So I can take a new employee to this board and say, these are the parts that are high risk on this machine. We have a lot of nips. We're converting film from large to small. A lot of things are moving at high speeds. We try to guard and light curtain as best we can, but there's still going to be risk. And so we have a process hazard assessment at this board. And that happens times a day as a lead is walking through the Gemba and they're doing their Gemba walk. They're talking with the employee around the board. Other sites and other companies like to call them huddle boards. And then at the turnover at the tier 2, that's where maintenance and scheduling and some of these other departments are coming to join. There's some problems that couldn't get done at a tier 1 throughout the shift. They might need another department to help them. That occurs every 12 hours. And if the problem can't be solved within a day or two at a tier 2 level, the problem rolls up into a tier 3. And now you have the operations manager and the entire management team is there. They're reporting out on their departments and the KPIs that are critical to them and critical to the operation of the facility. And then again, all that rolls up to a tier 4. And then you have the tier 4 is published and we We've always used a TV screen. That's one of the exceptions. Is all my other sites used a big like 4x8 whiteboard that they would update every week. We went digital very quick on that single board, but everything else was still handwritten. And you have to be careful. You're trying not to create wallpaper. If it's not value added to the employee, it just becomes wallpaper. So we were very careful. And now as we have some digital tools, wallpaper becomes more of a thing. They used to physically carry their information from one system to a board. But now all the information is digital. So now they're pulling it from a digital system to write it on a physical board, where we're in the process of, yeah, we need to do this differently. We need it to drive value, and doing that step is not value added for the employee. They're not giving me new insight, and we're kind of rebranding, if you will. Might not be the right word, but we need to iterate and pivot. We need to use some continuous improvement tools to optimize, perform a gap assessment, just like we did in the organization, just as we do in our own lives and careers. You do it within the business and you ask the employee, what can I do to make your job easier? You hate this task? I agree. It's not value added. Let's get rid of it. But what do I need to replace it with? You still need to own your data, but you don't physically have to have it on a piece of paper anymore and carry it around.
Yeah, that's an amazing transformation. I like to use the phrase, most people have a hidden factory of graphs and charts and whiteboards. And when you digitize it and you make the information available, then you can focus on the problem solving and the discussion and not making graphs and charts. So it sounds like you got to that point. And so could you share maybe an example, like what happens when an operator does say, hey, I see this problem, or I've got an idea. How do you move that forward? What does that system look like?
Yeah. So in 2019, we started our digital transformation piece. This is where data became, there's a phrase, and I know some of my coworkers will be upset with me because I can't remember it, but the data became agnostic, if you will. And anybody can use it no matter where they are, from an operator all the way up to anybody in the organization. They can log in and do this. We tried a couple different pilots. Jay, our CEO, says we cracked the code. Well, what it means is we found a partner that could analyze and give insights to our process, because we're not discrete manufacturing. I'm not doing a piecemeal. I'm not doing one in, one out. That's not what we're doing. We're extruding plastic and we're in a continuous process. And a lot of things have to happen on the fly. I can't stop and do a first article inspection. No, my product is coming out every 2 to 3 hours. So in the meantime, I can only do an inspection, a first article inspection every 2 to 3 hours. But we found some partners that couldn't do it. They promised the world. We tried some startups that didn't do it. We went to some huge names that everybody would know. They couldn't give us the insight that we wanted. And we found a partner that was young and I think hungry. And that's what I want. I want somebody with drive who wants to be successful. Not quite a startup, but been around for a while and had some demonstrated success. And that's who we chose as a partner. What I really like about the partner that we chose, I can send the chart and it's saved as a custom URL. I'm sure we are all familiar with, here's my data, my Microsoft Excel pivot table. There you go. Here's your screenshot. What do you think this trend means? Can you send me the data so I can break it down and figure out what it means? Well, I can send a URL code and it's the exact chart with every single parameter that I ever set up and evaluated. And now can be used by anybody. I don't have to go back to the person that found an insight to do further investigations. I end up at the exact same data site that they were at. I can do my own archaeological dig. I can do a hackathon. I can investigate and gain insight that I didn't have before. And now that means when somebody has a problem, hey, I noticed a dip on one of my power inputs, my 480 legs, a slight fluctuation. I think it's causing a problem because a short time later, I see this defect. Well, now we can investigate. And that was actually one of our big wins. We had oven controllers that one leg would drop and it would cause our process to shift inside the machinery and inside this oven. And all of a sudden the product is bad. Well, we do all of our checking. We put AM clamps on it. We could never find that insight until we put in a digital tool. And it would now overlay. You have a voltage spike. It was actually a voltage sag. You have a sag and you have a shift in the tower and you have bad product where it's not uniform in its gauge and thickness anymore. As it shifts, one side gets hot, thins out, the other side gets cold, thickens up. It's bad product. This plagued us for years, but we put in a digital tool And we were able to see that insight, and we were able to share and talk to everybody from my process technicians to my engineers to my employee and say, this is what we're seeing. We swapped out the oven controllers, done. The problem completely went away. And that is now one of our best performing lines where we weren't sure. It's hard to find a sleeping dragon. It's hard to find an intermittent problem. And the digital tools helped us to do that. And it took the whole team of looking at the same data set and to find the actual root cause.
You bring it right back to the shop floor. It just warms my heart. It's not with some statistician, it's not in the cloud. Actually bringing the usefulness right to the front line. And it's complex. I've made tape. There's so much chemistry and physics. And I like your phrase hidden dragon, because I've chased a few of those myself. Amazing that you can use that data to drive those solutions.
Erik, it's really interesting too, because this is a new skill set now, right? We've got data that we've never had access to before in real time. We're able to group multiple data points together to look for trends like you saw here. How did you guys train your workforce for the shift to be more data oriented and decision making?
I think motivation comes from value. People are driven to success or a new insight or something that they value. I can give somebody a new tool set. Here's a new CNC mill and lathe, go. Well, what am I going to do with this? My operator doesn't know how to run that. If I said, I can solve some of your problems on your line if you learned how to run a CNC mill, okay, we are all familiar with those pieces, but you have to make the link from whatever my new tool is to what drives value to the employee. I have one of my employees, he's a process technician. He ran our machines for a long time and he's very skilled. Not the most talkative. He's a quiet guy. And those ones you have to be careful for because they're often way smarter than you. But he does not own a computer at his house. He's not a technology guy. I mean, he races, does hill climbs with his quad. And he's fun, but not techie. So he is now one of our process technicians and we gave him a tool. And that's something he does every single day is he saw value and he spent time learning it and he spends time using it. So first thing he does when he comes in every day is I need to look at these lines and see how they're running. He's built some custom dashboards that fit for him and what he thinks are important. And he needed help to build some of those dashboards. So we helped build and give him the tool that he needs, but the tool set is there. And that's what's really important. We've had the system go down like once or twice. It's actually been incredibly reliable, surprisingly. But we've had the system go down a couple times. And he's one of the first to tell us, hey, did you know that the system's down? I can't see what's going on in real time on the line. And when you can take somebody who's not a technology person, who, like I said, doesn't even own a computer in his home, and now he's going to come in using a computer to help solve a problem on his machine or in his department. That's how you drive value. That's how you bring motivation. We have these tier 1 boards, which are still physical. They're still dry erase markers and they're writing things down. We're trying to revamp and iterate onto the next step, but we also added a digital dashboard. We're calling it our heartbeat board, but really now it's a dashboard that's pulling data in real time. This is what everybody thinks of it when they think digital transformation. I want to see an analytics board right here in real time, and I want to glean insights. It's always a work in process, and I can't tell you how many times we've rewritten it based on operator feedback. But now I can see I'm blending my HVAC system, I'm blending my quality lab system, my PLC, I'm blending climate controls within the building, my gauging system. Those are all separate PLC data streams and computer streams that are flowing into a data lake that I can tap into. So on one dashboard, I have 5 or 6 different data sources with unique pieces of information that we're trying to drive value with the operator. So if they say that's useless to me or it's too slow or I would rather have this, great, we'll rewrite it for them. And that's what we're in the process of doing, is continually making it more impactful and powerful for the employee.
Erik, one of the themes I'm picking up here, you mentioned earlier with your VP of transformation, Jay, asking, hey, who wants to participate in this pilot? Or, with this operator or the technician, you gave the example of, hey, I've got a tool that might be able to help you here. As Michael mentioned, it's this pool model where you're not forcing anything down. Is this kind of a management culture? Did you guys have a shift in your management style to move in this direction where you weren't forcing things on people? You're really presenting them with options and allowing them to choose?
Yeah, I think we are. And that's a good question because our previous manager, his name is Brian, he is now working for Jay as the part of the business transformation team. But he ran this facility for a long time through its ups and downs. And he was really the visionary that prompted the consolidation effort. And he is not a big talker as well. He's a little more quiet. But I think he built a fantastic management team. A lot of us, I'm thinking 3 or 4 of us came from tier 1 automotive, where the expectation in passenger safety, the expectation is perfect. That's it. Nothing else counts. You have one shot to save a life. And he brought in and recruited some people who have that mindset that, yes, I'm making tape or films. If I have a piece of tape peel off of a box, we've all experienced it. Nobody's dying. And if that was the culture, then you're never going to get better. But he brought in some people with experience in machine shop experience and production experience and quality. He brought in all these people and really created a team where we didn't have to operate in functional silos. That's always one of the problems or concerns is when you build, for example, IPS, I literally have a silo, like I have a pillar team that are kind of standing alone, but you need to work together. And he helped form that bond to do that, where I don't have no problems going to ask anybody in the facility, let alone any of my other managers, to do something outside of their work or their focus or department because they have the skill set that I need. Great, leverage it. And he helped us to do that at a management level, which allowed us to be cohesive when we are leading these pillars. Equipment optimization, for example, is all about making the machine faster, mean time between failures, all your traditional tools that you're familiar with. But there's also a training piece. So we need to jump over to the organizational development team, which is now led by one of my shift leads. But back then it was led by my HR manager. Well, the HR manager is probably not technical. He's probably not a mechanical guy who knows about gearboxes and, how hot they should be running. But he does know about training. He does know about how to put together a skills matrix and figure out where there is an opportunity to train my maintenance team. So now I have my engineering manager leading this equipment optimization team who's working with the HR manager who runs OD. And he's working with the maintenance manager to train all of these maintenance technicians on the skills that they need to be able to reduce that downtime. And I think that came from having a unified team at the top so that when we started asking employees what team they wanted to join, it wasn't really a rift. Oh, you're on that team? Oh, you're from that side of the tracks, or you're a jock and you're a drama person. Like, there wasn't that. And culturally, it really was. We want to make a difference. And if you have a problem, reach out and we're going to solve it or help you solve it, which is really the focus. We want the employee to solve their own problem, but we want to give them the tools to be successful. And if they can't do it, we are completely there as a safety net to help to provide capital to buy new machinery if that's what it really takes to solve the problem.
Did the org structure change to align with the pillars?
No, it did not. So the organizational structure stayed the same, but the pillar structure has changed. So when IPS launched, we already have the right people, and there are probably some fitting of some square pegs into round holes a little bit, where it might not be your exact cup of tea, but I need you on behalf of the entire organization and facility to lead this team. Will you do that for us? And we saw great success. But yeah, we didn't, other than a CI, I don't think we hired anybody else for that. Since then, we've kind of built a process team, which is more day to day. And so the process engineer, controls engineer, and engineering manager can kind of focus a little more on capital and some of these bigger projects. And we brought in a couple people who we actually hired from within, where they were really skilled maintenance employees or production employees. They were really good in the extrusion department or converting, and then empowered them and allowed them to focus on problem solving and writing work instructions. Use this knowledge that they have to better the organization. But organizationally wise, org structure, no, it stayed the same.
It stayed the same, but the focus really became around supporting the pillars rather than supporting the traditional org structure like you see in a lot of companies.
Correct. The same thing happened when the company launched digital transformation. We didn't hire a single data scientist. I don't have a data scientist on the book. And we did it with resources within the facility because we're the ones that know best. Let me clarify. We're the ones that understand the process the best. I understand how film comes out of a die, how it gets cooled, how it goes through all these different steps, where a data scientist might be better at correlations and they might be able to glean insights that we've never thought of. I'm thinking of the movie Moneyball, like just think completely differently than we've ever thought before. Yeah, I think a data scientist could help us. But some of our pilots didn't go well because the data scientists that we were partnering with, they were helping with this data wrangling. They didn't understand how data tag 1 affected data tag 2 because they didn't understand physically where it fits within the facility. They didn't have that insight. You know who does? My employee who's working and turning the knobs every day. They know. And my process team and my management team, because we live it every day. So I think that's why we were successful, is we had the expertise and background that we were able to leverage when we used the new tools.
Hey, Eric, one kind of side question. You mentioned capital and, all the technologies and sensors and PLCs and stuff like that. And being on the journey for 7 years, I'm sure you've seen some up and down in capital funding and justifying. And so how do you manage that? How do you do lean and improve and drive this when there's got to be some fluctuation in the capital?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to our former engineering manager, who's now the operations manager within our site. He's done a fantastic job. He's a controls engineer by background in upgrading some of these old machines who it just needed to be done. 20-year-old, good bones, but all new brains. 20-year-old machinery. I don't need to change the steel, but I do need to change the PID loop, the control logic. He unified and reorganized process flow within the facility. Product comes in from the north, it hits an extrusion, then it comes to a storage area where our product needs to cure, and then it hits the converting department, and then it hits the warehouse. That is my north to south within my facility. My engineering manager is the one that did that. His name is Bill, and he's fantastic, and he's skilled at that. But yeah, you do have to balance a publicly traded company and your capital ins and outs. The IPS had a focus, which was gross margin improvement. And when we first started, all of these sites said, my GMIs are based on capital. You give me $10 million, I'll save you $1 million. Well, anybody can really do that. So you had to find ways to drive savings, create savings and drive value without the capital. Capital can help, but a good system doesn't need an influx of money to make the change. I've always been of the opinion, there's always a 20% just laying there for free. You can speed machines up. You can help people be more productive. You can reduce steps. You can build work cells. There's unlimited amounts of things that we can do to make that change. But my engineering manager did put things together and get the capital that he needed. We've bought another machinery, another extrusion line, but he was also very skilled to say, I know that the company has allocated X number of dollars, millions of dollars for capital. And I know that I'll only get my little share in the beginning because that's how it works. Here's your little slice of the pie. But by the end of the year, you have all these projects in reserve that are ready to go. The CDR is written, ready to click submit, and you wait for, oh no, it's Q4. We haven't spent our money. Some of the sites and projects are delayed. Well, it's a use it or you lose it. If the company doesn't spend its capital, that'll actually hurt the company the next year when they ask for more. Well, we gave you this much money and you didn't spend and do what you said you were going to do. Well, we have these projects in reserve and ready to go. So Q4, hey, by the way, can anybody spend money? That was my engineering manager right then. I'm ready to go. And we did get a higher percentage compared to, gross profit compared to my other sites. So we got a little more money than the other sites because we were prepared. And we executed on the project that we were given on time, on budget. And when you have 34 sites and you have a couple that are on time, on budget, ready to take on more, they're going to continue to get a little bit of this influx. So again, when it came time to ask who wants to do this digital transformation, we stuck our hand up because we had already demonstrated over years and years of we've turned the entire company around. If you put money into our facility, we're going to invest, we're going to execute, we're going to do what we say we're going to do with it. And we're going to find ways to measure film that thinner film than anybody else. And we're going to find a way to do it without using radioactive materials. And so I can now share these wins within the organization. It doesn't matter if you're making tapes or films or woven or ECP or anything. You still have to measure flatness. So we found a way to do that, and we invested in it, and we've rolled it out to my lines. And that's one of the ways we're able to do that is sometimes you have capital, and you know what? There's still 20% of low-hanging fruit. If you don't think there is, you're lying to yourself. You can motivate and empower your employees to get more productivity, and you can do simple things that you've never thought of, simple things on a machine to make it go a little faster or have a little better quality, or it's there. You do have to find it. You have to turn over every rock to do it, but it's there. So it's not dependent on capital, but I have to be honest, is capital helps, right? So when you have capital, you can upgrade some of these machinery, these pieces of equipment. So if you wanted a digital transformation, great, you are already prepped for it. If you want to just have a new insight or have better data to provide an employee, you can do that too. And at some point, you're going to have to spend some money to do it, but you don't have to spend money to see a return. You don't have to spend money to see radical change within an organization.
Yeah. And I think that's, based on our conversation today, I see this transition to the culture change, the mindset shift. And one thing I'm really curious about, Erik, is as you look to the future, the next 10 years, something that I'm really interested in is your organization, rather than bringing in specialists, like you mentioned, the data scientist, you develop the skill set of your existing employees. And now they have a broader skill set. They might not be so specialized in one area. Do you think, is that the future for IPG, is broader skill set versus specialization?
I think so. Whether that's a long-term strategy or not, it's the right thing to do. Zig Ziglar said in response to training their employees, and he says, I would rather train my employees and lose them than not train them and keep them. And it's just the cost of doing business. If we have an employee who wants to learn a new skill or have identified a gap, I think we owe it to them as being part of a team, but owe it to the employee to say, we've identified you have the soft skills that we want. I'm going to help teach you the hard skills. So some of my controls engineers have grown up from just a maintenance technician where we taught them automation. We taught them we sent them back to school for their education. We give them clip training at the local technical colleges, and we empower them. And yeah, we had one that just left this week, but he went from kind of a process technician to he's going to a quote unquote a real job in his field. He's finishing up his bachelor's degree, and it was great to have him here. But we do want to empower our employee. That's first and foremost. And that's how you're going to make a difference.
Yeah, I really like that kind of mindset. You've got the right people in your building. They might just not have the skills you need today. How do we get them those skills?
Yeah. A longer term perspective. You just give them time to grow. Got to give them time.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Well, Erik, this has been great. I appreciate you joining us on the podcast and talking through your guys' transformation. It's really remarkable. I mean, just to hear from worst to first, obviously, that means a lot, I'm sure, for you guys. There's probably a lot of pride in that transformation. But thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing the story with us.
Brian and Michael, thank you so much. It was good to talk to you guys again. And it's been great to be here and share our story. We love telling it. We really have made a difference, and we've sought external awards to validate that we're on the right path. And we're still partnering with new teams to help get us to that next level. And thank you so much for your time today.
Stay number one.
That's the goal. Nobody wants to slide.
We're rooting for you.
Thanks, Erik. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for listening to the Voices of Manufacturing, brought to you by Dozuki. To stay up to date, subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit dozuki.com/podcast to learn more.